In Artifact 9, I will demonstrate my ability to use technology to create, adapt, and personalize learning experiences. Here's an example of a learning module I designed using the principles of Universal Design for Learning, or UDL. UDL calls for teachers to give their students access to the content through multiple means of engagement. Here, students have options for collaborating with their peer groups while they work, going through the content independently, or working in a small group that is guided by me. UDL requires multiple means of representation. In this module, there is a video, a set of presentation slides with summarized text and images. I will talk about their importance later. An interactive lesson on our digital content platform that has deeper content, vocabulary, and regular checkpoints. UDL's final criterion is that a teacher provides multiple means of expression. This module gives the students an option between two writing tasks to demonstrate their learning. Other modules in this unit of study include creative storyboards using Scratch, reflection questions with responses on Flip, an infographic to illustrate the problems with the Great Leap Forward in China, and a traditional unit test using Microsoft Forms. Personalized learning is also culturally responsive. Most of my English language learners speak Spanish as their first language, so I have spent some time over the years translating my resources to include Spanish in addition to English. Doing so provides the students with the content in their language, but allows them to see the information in English, therefore helping them to develop their language skills too. Here you can see the vocabulary that is specific to my content with the words and definitions also in Spanish. High contrast between text and background colors makes it easier for individuals, including those with visual impairments, to read and comprehend the content. For example, individuals with color vision deficiencies may have difficulty distinguishing between certain colors, but high contrast can mitigate this issue. Research suggests that using contrasting colors can improve retention and comprehension of information as well. Having images in your educational materials is vital and an age old understanding in academia. I can't think of a single textbook that I have used as a student or educator that doesn't have pictures. The images you see here are from a set of presentation slides that I used to teach my students about India's British colonial period, or the British Raj. I love teaching this lesson purely for the comments and conversation that the content and images here evoke. A picture is truly worth 1,000 words. Pictures can also provide students with a glimpse of the world, parts of it that they may never see. Standard 6.1 requires that I foster a culture where students take ownership of their learning goals and outcomes in both independent and group settings. I was well into my adult years before I had heard about SMART goals. I was a pretty good student all through high school, but if I had been taught to develop SMART goals, I might have been even better. Therefore, I make an effort to teach my students about the importance of having goals, which, in my opinion, is so they always have something they are working towards earning, gaining, or accomplishing. So I teach them that goals should be SMART, or in other words, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. Moving forward in my career as a Master of Education, I want to not only teach my students the importance of goals, but to also assist them in developing them as SMART goals. So, as a way to teach them how to and to learn some things about them so I can support them in a more personalized way, I have created this form that you see here on the screen. Reminders of what the acronym stands for, along with clarifying information, should help them get started. This information will help me kickstart the one on one meetings that I already do with my students throughout the year. Here, one of my coworkers snapped these pictures of me and my student Varad while we were discussing his plan for his environmental issues project. It turns out he wanted to learn more about air pollution in his home state of Andhra Pradesh. He told me about memories he has of living there and that the pollution was one of the reasons why his family left. He wanted to learn more about the causes of air pollution and why it is so much worse in India than in most other parts of the world. Varad was having a little trouble getting started, so I jotted down some notes from our conversation, and I got to work looking for sources that he could use for his project. I found 4 different news outlets and environmental awareness websites, and I linked them in Varad's OneNote portfolio because, as his teacher, I have access to his notebook. In our next class, I showed Varad all of the ways in which I evaluated these sources for his use. For more information on that, see Standard 3.2 and Artifact 7 in my portfolio. Artifact 9 concludes with a demonstration of how I provide alternative ways for students to demonstrate competency and reflect on their learning using technology. One of my favorite ways to attain student buy-in to our content is to find a way to relate it to something they like or could potentially get into. A few years back, one of my teammates had just seen Marvel Studios' Black Panther and was hyped up with ways in which elements of the movie connect with our learning standards. Students connect the government of Wakanda to that of a monarch. The students see what happens when the fictional Wakanda is able to avoid being colonized, leaving its way of life, culture, and natural resources unchanged by the Western world. Students are treated to rolling hills, wide open grasslands, snowy mountains, and urbanized landscapes. They hear the native African language of the Xhosa being spoken, and so many other connections are being made to our content. In order to demonstrate their understanding, students are given some suggestions, but ultimately they are given some voice too. They have the option of writing a 5-paragraph essay with Microsoft Word in which they describe the reasons why Wakanda was able to thrive while the rest of Africa was colonized by Europeans, stripped of its natural resources, and left to rebuild in conflict. They could create a Padlet where they create headings for each major domain and then provide examples and a contextualization for each. They can use Canva or Adobe Express to create a movie poster which illustrates the examples of our social studies themes within the movie. They could also use Canvas or Adobe Express or ScreenPal or Flip or TikTok and many others to create a video in which they review the movie with illustrations and explanations of how the movie relates to our content. Camera shy students can make a podcast episode. Other ideas include an interactive presentation with Microsoft Sway or a concept map using Lucidchart. And to further unlimit their creativity, students can suggest a digital tool and format not mentioned here. And if it can fit into our schedule, I won't hold them back.